And this is why I use social media, because it's all time stamped and dated in archivable format for the purposes of public notices. So whatever I'm putting in the public domain, no matter whose show I'm on right now, I'm also asserting my rights to restore the land back to the original people, wherever they at on the land. It don't matter where you at, because once we get it back, the family will have family reunions again, centered around one of the grandmamas, we would call big mamas. And they would set up the family trust, which is your family banking system, in order to allocate resources to the members of the family. And even the tribes that don't think from referring to them will receive their tribal rights back under our system that they were denied under the corporate fiction that was the interim government for the time of war. That's over with. They closed March the 1st. Right. So, well, that's the scheduled day of closing. They're supposed to have been closed. But they have no bill on the table to try to extend their legal fiction any longer than March the 1st. So we will be having a national Mardi Gras next year. Trump announced it as a 250-year celebration, right? Which takes us to February the 25th, and it's 25 on 2 flips, which is 2 quarters. 2 quarters is 50 flip. And you have 50 on each side. That's 200, which is the 4-corner shuffle to put everything back in its proper order. There's balance on both sides. 2 quarters on this side, 2 quarters on that side, which turns out to be 4 sevens, which is 4 masters. So it's all about getting back to our own systems, so that we can be self-determining and autonomous, and we can make all of those decisions at the leadership summits about who gonna settle where and how we gonna tribe up. We got the right to restore our cultural heritage any way we see fit, without anybody's outside opinion even being given a fuck about. This is not about what they think or want us to do. It's about what we decide to do amongst ourselves at this point. We have to choose how we want to be as a people across the land.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
A lot of people's feelings is hurt because they believed for so long a thing was one way. And when you find out for the first time, damn, I got tricked. That's not the first thing that you feel, though. The first thing you feel is the anger and the resentment of the fact that you was tricked. Then the next thing that you feel is, I didn't mind finding out I was tricked, but why did it have to be this motherfucker to tell me? Because the person that they expect to see is not the person that appeared with the information to set them free. And so you don't look the part. They reject what you're saying as if you don't know what you're talking about.
I love that answer.
It's a response to cognitive dissonance in the negative.
It's almost.
But see, that's part of shadow work too, finding your self-identity. Can't nobody tell you who you is. If you let everybody tell you who you is, they're creating your artificial ego for you.
That part.
Because your ego is the sum total of everything anybody told you about you that you believe without investigating to find out if it was true.
That's right.
Oh man, people disagreeing with me. I don't think everybody supposed to agree on everything all the time anyway. We'd all be some fucking idiots. Only if you disagree and then you go to prove it wrong and you find out you prove it right, do you change your mind. Oh, I done been everything but a child of God.
Me too.
Right. And so,
I'm wrong because I asked the question.
Look, I feel like anybody got a right to feel and think however they want. That's their right. I just don't have to give a fuck. I never read that nowhere where because you don't like me, I have to be overly concerned about it. I don't care. I don't care. You're supposed to have your own perspective of your life, right? It just so happens that most people believe they have their own perspective, but they following some dogmatic pursuit somebody else gave them. I'm not following dogma.
Nisha had a question for you.
I'm following what's in my heart. My heart told me where I belong. Period. So they running into the paper genocidal construct where they reclassified us under fictitious terms and alternate definitions of who we are as a people. So we would always disassociate who we are from the land. I know where my parents is from. I know what tribes are from those lands. So I don't care what they say. I know my history because my mom and my daddy told me my history over my lifetime, and my aunties and my uncles. They told all of the stories of the family that allowed me to reach back generations of information through the stories that they would tell. I don't need a DNA test to prove who I am. I said who I was. That's proof for me. It don't have to be proof for somebody else. When I tell a person I'm Mississippi clay dirt walking, that's because my people come from Mississippi. And I got a strong connection to the land in Mississippi. And my father's Canton, Mississippi. My mother's from Magnolia, Macomb, Mississippi. Most of those towns, Tylertown to Macomb, is built on my grandfather's actual own settlement. They carved it up and built cities on his land. I know who Hezekiah Johns was. So when they don't know who their ancestors was, they can't tie back in to the information because they disregard the word of mouth for the paperwork of the educational or miseducation system. So I don't follow that. I follow what my elders and my ancestors told me that's crossed over now while they was in the physical form, more so than what's written in the book. Africa was created by the Berlin Conference.
But the continent was there, but it wasn't called Africa. We've always, and I hope people understand, we've always been a tribal people. But these statuses and names through invasions and conquering and all this has been put on in different places.
Look, you remember earlier I said on the East Coast, we were marrying between the royal families of Africa for thousands of years. That landmass has always done trade with the tribes over here.
Okay.
We kept a lot of the African cultural traditions in the Gullah Geechee community because they the descendants of amalgamation of original people from this land and the people they did trade with from Africa. Some of the ones that we called Native Americans that was on the West Coast was due to us, the original tribes, amalgamating with the tribes that was from Asia when we did West Coast trade across the Pacific. If you don't know the pattern and the path that the enemy took when he got here, he will confuse you about these details. But the Chinese and the Japanese have a record of doing trade with the tribes over here and bringing brides from over there to over here. It's in their records. So we don't need the records from the settlers because we can go to China and get their records and they would gladly produce them.
How long has it been called Africa, Rod? Do you know that?
It was at the Berlin Conference. I think it was like 1780 something.
Right. But when the full continent was called Africa, was now in the 1800s.
Right. So at first, Africa was a region in the northern part of Al-Maghrib. It was only a region. Because of the war we was fighting against people from Al-Maghrib. and we go into this kind of war with them, they name the whole continent Africa in the Berlin Conference, because that's when Ifraq in Arabic, they divided Ifraq. They divided up the land. They divided up the land in the Berlin Conference, right? We didn't call it Africa. Over here, we used to refer to the land as the Afar Inca.
Okay.
The Afar Inca is a homonym